Nationally, there's a teacher shortage. Why? Because the profession hasn't been valued. And so lifting the compensation package is part of that effort to kind of pull it back up there.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Our next guest is from the Clark County Education Association. Really excited for this conversation. The Clark County Education Association represents teachers in Las Vegas, and we now have the executive director of the Clark County Education Association on to talk to us about their new contract that they just won and the new campaign that they are embarking on. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. Really excited about this conversation. And, you know, before we jump into the contract talk, can you talk to us about, just what got you involved in the labor movement and, what brought you to the position that you're in today?
Too long for this show. I've got 4 decades into this. It's really about trying to make a difference for working people. That's the simplest way I can put it.
There you go. There you go. That's the right reason. And so talking about this contract with Las Vegas teachers, I was talking to Paula about this, and it was really shocking, especially the compensation packages of Las Vegas teachers. Can you give us just a background understanding of the compensation package and the working conditions of Las Vegas teachers over the past few years?
Well, I think it's first important to understand that the Clark County School District is the 5th largest school district in the country. There's over 300,000 students. These are mainly working class students of color. And Nevada, which is primarily based on 2 industries, gaming and mining, historically really has never invested in public education in this state. So the funding levels have been historically low, ranked nationally near the bottom a lot of times. And the reason is pretty simple. Those industries don't need an educated workforce, right? So they're not going to invest in it. It hasn't become a real high priority. Now, of recent, I would say over the last several years, we've been trying to lead the efforts to make it more of a priority, to get the kind of funding that we need in these classrooms for these kids and for these educators to do what they do. And so this contract, I think, is the result of about, maybe 6 years' work. In this state, most of the funding for public education comes from the state. The state has a state government process that's called a citizen government, which means that they only meet every 2 years. And when they meet, they have a session for 120 days. And so you then have to live with the consequences of what comes out of that session for 2 years. So we take that pretty serious. And each session that we go into, we try to advance progress in public education, whether it's on the funding level, or whether it's on good policy that makes sure that these kids learn and that these frontline educators have support. So this contract, like I said, is the results of several years' work, essentially starting up in the state government, securing the kind of funding that we need before it got down to the school district. And in the end, it was designed to give significant salary increases to our frontline educators, to give additional money for those educators that are in challenging schools and classrooms. 70% of our student population is on free and reduced lunch. So we have, almost 200 schools that are Title I schools. And out of that, about 160 of those have 82% of all the vacancies. The vacancy levels in this school district amount to about 30,000 kids each year don't have a teacher. They have a substitute. And so the vacancies are in the numbers of anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000, right? And the teachers that we represent is over 18,000. So the salary increases were designed to address the vacancy issue, to try to give people a boost in pay, to keep them here, as well as to be competitive, to recruit people, and in more so to be very surgical to try to get teachers into these high need schools where these kids can get a teacher in every classroom. The deal was worth $750 million. The legislature dumped $2.5 billion in their last session in public education in this state. So when you do the math, we got about a third of it, and we try to get it into the pocketbooks of these teachers.
That's pretty significant, and you said that a big part of it was the salary increase. What was the starting salary for teachers in Las Vegas and in Clark County before this contract?
Well, before this contract, it was about 50,000, and the top pay was a little under 100,000. With this contract, the entry level by the second year will be almost 60,000, and the top pay will be almost $142,000. So a pretty significant jump. It's very competitive with the Western United States, SoCal in particular, LA Unified, for example, which is the second largest school district in the country.
That is, like you said, that's a huge jump. And the reason I wanted you to say that is because when Paula told me that about the starting salary before this contract, that absolutely baffled me, because it was not that much higher than starting salary for Alabama teachers. Alabama teachers' starting salary is 43,000 something, right, Adam?
Yeah, something around those lines, in the low to mid 40s. And
so, only $6,000-7,000 above what teachers in Alabama is making is that's pretty close, and the cost of living in Las Vegas is not very close. So, starting at $50,000 a year in Las Vegas, I imagine was very difficult, and I could see why the Clark County school districts were having a difficult time recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, look, nationally, there's a teacher shortage. So it's a teacher's market. You can go pretty much anywhere you want in this country because, a lot of people have not gone into the profession. And why?
Right.
Because the profession hasn't been valued as it was once. And so the lifting the compensation package is, part of that effort to try to catapult it back up there.
Were there any other big wins in this contract that you think would be worth talking about?
Well, I mean, we made some significant improvement around, our health insurance for these teachers. We got almost a 20% increase on employer contributions to our self-funded nonprofit health plan for these teachers. We got additional pay for any minute worked after their contract day. It used to be like $31.50. We got it up to $50. And we started the school year where these teachers took a cut of 1.875% in pay for their public pension plan. And we got that restored of 1.875% too. So when you really look at the total package, even though there was a 10% the first year and an 8% the second year, on average, the range of increases is anywhere from 23% to 34% for these teachers, which is pretty significant.
Right. And especially over a 2-year period, we've been used to union contracts, 30%, but over 3, 4, or even 5 years, right? 30% over 2 years is very significant. Something that I was told about the contract campaign is that it was very slow going, and it was difficult to get the school district to take the negotiations seriously. Can you talk to us about the timeline and why it was that it took so long for them to get serious?
Well, let me kind of put it in context. On March 30th, 2023, we started our negotiations with the school district, and what we put on the table is what we ended on in a settlement on December 20th, 2023. So it was a 9-month struggle, right? And it wasn't because the district never had the money. I mean, we played a significant role in helping to secure the money at the state level to, draw it down to the district level. It was really about priorities and whether or not the district wanted to make the type of investment in compensation that we felt, or our members felt, really was needed. And so there was this, essential roadblock that was based on the priority issue. And it got very contentious and got very ugly. But before we even started the negotiation process, we had essentially reached our limits with the school administration and had publicly called for either the resignation or the termination of the superintendent. So imagine for a moment you're about to go into negotiations and the union has said, this guy's got to go. We don't want this guy around. We did a lot of TV ads. We did a lot of canvassing in different districts. I mean, just to put a lot of pressure on these guys because he's a liability to public education. So that contributed to it. It was like, okay, union, we're going to take you on and we're going to beat you. And, the results are the results. They lost, we won, and now we're moving forward with the next step. But it was a lengthy process. These educators hung in there. I don't know how many rallies we had. We had, dozens of massive rallies, half a dozen massive meetings where we had several thousand educators. We had a lot of rallies in front of the schools. Many of them involved students and parents. We had 6 high school students walk out of school in support of these teachers during this struggle. We had a half a dozen schools that engaged in these kind of wildcat sick outs on their own, which, caused us to get dinged in court for, essentially embarking on an illegal strike. But what I'm trying to suggest, there was a lot of momentum. There was a lot of unity. And even though we didn't have the right to strike in this state, people were they were prepared to win it and take whatever they needed to do, and as long as they needed to do to achieve that.
Is there any bargaining strategy that y'all had that you would want to share that you feel like would be instructive for teachers in other states or anybody that's bargaining their contract now?
I think it varies by industry, and I think it varies by school district, and I think it varies based on funding levels. It varies based on relationships and the politics of a school board and all that. So, I would be not too inclined to try to give anybody advice, except that if you don't have your members and they're not organized and they're not, supportive of the fight, particularly if the fight takes on a very protracted nature, right? Because at some point it becomes a fight of attrition. The other side waits to see whether or not there's a break in your ranks and people are ready to settle. And so that would be an advice I would suggest. But most people that have done this kind of stuff and have been successful, they know that already. So I wouldn't be giving them any advice they don't already know.
Right.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
And what was the mechanism that finally did settle the negotiations?
Well, I think what ultimately, beyond the steadfast unity and perseverance of our members, it's our political influence. I mean, we're an organization, and I have no idea who you have on your show in terms of labor organizations, but we have no loyalty to any political party. So we'll work with anybody that works with our issues, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. And in the state of Nevada, we have split government right now. The Democrats control the legislative branch and the Republicans control the executive branch, the governorship. And so we worked with the leadership of both parties, both branches of government. And, we had done that not overnight, but over the last several years. And I think it's that kind of relationship building or that's based on issues, not partisan politics, paid off because both the speaker and the majority leader of the legislature came out and called for the firing of the superintendent during this contract dispute.
Wow.
The governor was behind the scenes, essentially, telling the school district settle. Never came to us and said, "Hey, you guys need to compromise," because he knew what we were proposing was the right thing. So I think that played a role. Starts with your membership, and then I think the political influence we had played a role. But in the end, the mechanism for a settlement is in this state is binding arbitration, right? And so we don't have the right to strike. In 1969, teachers in Clark County essentially had a couple of walkouts, and the gaming industry, had fits over that because their workers, kids that were in these schools were not in these schools, and so they didn't show up to work. So in any event, a law was passed prohibiting the right to strike for public sector workers. But in exchange for that, we got what's called binding arbitration. And binding arbitration is, if there's impasse in negotiations, then you get an arbitrator, a neutral third party. You have so many sessions, and then either a decision is made by the arbitrator. It's baseball arbitration, by the way. They either take our proposal or the district's proposal. It's short of them rendering a decision that way, they can order the parties back to the table and negotiate an agreement. And that's, in fact, what happened here. And the arbitrator just accepted that negotiated agreement as his decision. But the problem is, for us, is it took a long time, right? And This is the fourth arbitration we've had in the last 10, 11, 12 years. And, the longest arbitration process for us took 1.5 years. The shortest one took 7 months. So, it's a system that doesn't work. And that's why we put on our agenda that we're gonna change the law.
Yes, yeah, that has been, as far as I can tell, a big impetus for your the new campaign that y'all are embarking on to try to change the way that these negotiations can be resolved in the state of Nevada. Can you talk to us about your new campaign?
Yeah, so we're going to file an initiative petition, a statutory ballot initiative that essentially allows educators in the state of Nevada the right to strike. And so that requires, a little over 100,000 signatures of voters in the 4 congressional districts here. We've got till November of this year to get those signatures. We're going to do it. We're very confident. We've done this before. We've gone to and used the initiative petition to move policy and move funding up in the state government. So we're very, very confident that this is going to happen. But what happens is once we qualify those signatures, before it goes to the 2026 election cycle for voters to vote on, it goes before the Nevada legislature and the governor in 2025. And they have 40 days to act on that initiative petition. They either can accept it, they can reject it, and if they reject it, it can go to the ballot. Or, there might be some kind of compromise worked out, and if that's the case, if we still don't want to, take it to the people in 2026, we can withdraw the initiative petition. But that's what we're doing. We're essentially, and that's a significant resource issue, and that's one of the things that our organization is fortunate to have, is the type of resources to play politics, hardball politics in the state of Nevada. I failed to say at the beginning of this meeting, we are an independent teachers union. We're the largest independent teachers union in the country, as well as in the state of Nevada. So we're local controlled, if you will. So every penny of dues that are paid by an educator is controlled by the local, which affords us the opportunity to do things like these ballot initiatives.
That's interesting. So the Clark County Education Association is not affiliated with the National Education Association.
No, we broke away in 2018, pretty bitter legal fight, but we broke away, got our freedom, and it's been nothing but smooth sailing since.
Adam worked for the
Wow.
NEA affiliate here in Alabama, and and worked is the operative word, past tense, and so I'm sure that he has some feelings about that too.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to applaud y'all for the fight and for showing the fight. I think that's really important because here in Alabama, educators, as a former educator, we don't have collective bargaining. We don't have the right to strike. We're facing conditions that in other states would be totally unacceptable. But I just really applaud the fight of the Clark County Education Association. And like you said, playing hardball politics and being willing to go to the people, because I think the people are behind educators and are behind working class folks more broadly. And so I'm wishing y'all much success. And I really am looking forward to seeing this happen. I think this is, a historic thing for public sector workers to regain rights that have been lost, right? We've been losing for so many decades as working people. To see our unions fight to regain what has been lost, I think is a really big deal. So I really appreciate what y'all are doing.
Yeah, thanks.
And so, you're interested, you're going to be pushing for the right to strike for educators in Nevada. And so if you could, explain to us what the benefit of that would be. Why do you want educators to have the right to strike? The common, one of the responses would be that, oh, you just hate the children, right? That's why every teacher goes into the profession, is they just hate kids. Is that why y'all want the right to strike?
Yeah, well, listen, we don't take this lightly, and we don't take the issue for granted among parents, among businesses, et cetera. So we've done a lot of outreach even before we filed this ballot initiative. And we actually did some field research, some polling to see where people were at. Let me just say this last struggle took 9 months. These kids suffered in those 9 months more than if we had been on strike for 2 days. And that's part of our argument. If we had the right, we would there would be a more equal level playing field in terms of the power balance with this school district. And we believe very strongly that this contract would have been settled a lot quicker, right? With the benefits getting into the classroom and trying to get more teachers in front of these kids that don't have teachers. And so our argument with the community and parents in particular is the system doesn't work. And yeah, it's very easy and in a very self-serving way. I can explain to you how it hurts teachers, but I can also provide enough evidence to show you how it hurts kids because kids aren't learning during this period, right? They're a victim of this dysfunctional law that exists. And so that's in part why we take very serious what we're doing, and we want the support of the parents. And with the business community, we're basically saying, look, we're not asking you to support it. We're just telling you stay out of the fight. The community can decide this issue. You don't have to decide this issue. So.
No, I think that I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that absolutely. I think that there's a certain argument that that it's just fundamentally a worker's right to strike. I think that's also really important. But there are, as you just laid out, a lot of practical reasons why basically every interested party should support this measure. It would have good outcomes for all involved, and so looking forward to seeing y'all winning on that, just like you did on the contract. And before we let you go, I did have a couple of things I was wondering about the contract. Did y'all have in the contract? Were you able to get anything on parental leave or planning time protections, special education caseload limits, or class size limits? Anything along those lines in the contract?
No substantive change on those fronts. Really, what drove this settlement was the fiscal component, right? So you can't reduce class sizes if you don't have teachers, right? And so you're not going to have teachers unless you're going to pay them to stay and pay to have them come in. Right. And caseload's the same with special ed. one of the additional compensation we got was another $5,000 on their base pay for all special ed teachers because we have vacancies there as well. So you're not going to address these caseloads, these class sizes until you address the vacancies issue. And so that's where the priority was.
Gotcha.
Right. You've got to have the educators in the classroom, right? And so you have to be able to recruit and retain those. And I think, it's just, you can't emphasize it enough. I know it's a slogan, but the educators' working conditions really are the students' learning conditions. And so when you have vacant classrooms because you won't pay to recruit and retain qualified folks, that's impacting these kids and these families. And so I think, the contract gains that y'all provided here and that your members helped win is going to really impact the whole community. It's going to uplift folks throughout the community. And so it's really to be celebrated.
Yeah, I mean, I listen, we're not taking for granted that there's going to be a light switch of success overnight, right? And now, we're going to take on the burden of trying to demonstrate success, that these kind of gains will result in getting more teachers in a classroom, having better student outcomes because of that. And so we're not going to just walk away from our responsibility. Why? Because we had tremendous support in this fight from the public because they saw it and the need for it. And now, it's our burden as well to make sure, okay, we want your kids to learn and we want to show improvement on that front. So it's not one of these things where we win and then we walk away and we say, okay, next time, let's just get ready for another fight. It's like the fight now is to improve education, particularly, and I'll say this again, these are working class kids of color. Many of them live in poverty. And they're not going to have an opportunity in this country unless they get a decent education. And right now, a lot of them are not, for the reasons I think I shared on this program.
John Vellardita, Executive Director of the Clark County Education Association, representing workers, educators in Las Vegas and the surrounding areas. Appreciate your time on the program.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you. Take care.
All right, you too.
All right. Yeah, really good stuff. Interesting contrast with, like Adam alluded to, the situation of educators in Alabama. Was there anything else that you wanted to say on that, the kind of comparison and contrast piece between what they were able to win and the working conditions of Alabama educators, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things stand out. The fact that they had an active contract campaign, right, with rallies and with activity as something that you don't see in Alabama. You don't see very much in the South, I don't believe, broadly in our public schools. The fact that there is an actual contract negotiation, right? The fact that the members have input into the process, right? By and large, salaries in Alabama, there's a state minimum salary matrix that's set. A lot of the school districts, that's all they pay. Some, all they can afford to pay. Some, that's what they choose to pay. Right. But the state legislature puts that into place. Teachers don't have any input. The Alabama Education Association and other education groups, of course, lobby and try to influence it, obviously. But, that is not the same as having an up or down vote as a member. That's not the same as electing a bargaining team representative to go to the table and represent you and to complete bargaining input. It's just a very different process, a less democratic process. And so it's going to be interesting to see, if they build off these contract wins in terms of salaries and, can they recruit and retain people? I totally hear John's argument and agree with John's argument that you got to pay folks first to get them in the door before you can start addressing other issues. But working conditions are really huge and something that, I think probably if we took a look, we could see in Las Vegas, there are protections in place for teachers that Alabama educators would dream of.
Right.
Right. And that is what you see. You see a stark difference between what you experience in Alabama's public schools, Mississippi's public schools versus unionized states. In Alabama, a teacher is only allotted 30 minutes of planning time. And it's not even called planning time. It's just, free of supervision or supervision, basically 30 minutes where you're not directly supervising kids per day. And there's no enforcement mechanism for that. There's no way to, penalize the employer for violating that. So if they put you in meetings all week, if they make you cover someone's class during your planning period, there's no way to really do much about it. You can file a grievance that, gets nowhere, more than likely, because again, what leverage do you have? And that's just an example. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of stark differences. What it's inspiring for me to see an education association that is being proactive and is trying to push the needle, right? They are not just lying down and saying, well, I guess we don't have the right to strike. Oh, well, that was settled 50 years ago. Right. They're actually bringing that back into the public debate and are willing to commit significant resources to fight this fight because it's the right thing to do. And, that would be a welcome change of face in Alabama, to see educators organizing, to see them organize in big numbers, to see them actually have political influence and to proactively shape the agenda and to ask, and well, not just ask, but to demand the rights that they ought to have. Why should Alabama educators have less rights than educators in Nevada, in Michigan, in California? Why? And so that's the question we have to look at. And I want Alabama educators to ask themselves that question. Do you deserve less? And if you believe that you don't, then it's time to organize.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.